Aye.
Yeah.
9 o'clock. You join us for our flag salute. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First order of business will be the minutes from last week.
Also move to
Dawn has moved. Is there a second?
second.
Dawn has moved and Tom has seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. In our miscellaneous motions, we have our motion to approve resolution number 772M, a resolution establishing the pay scale and classification for the county employees of Coffee County, Kansas.
Mr. Chairman, thinking about the decision last week to not pass out step increases. Everybody gets the cost of living. And making a statement that when you do, we can, taxpayers and employees, the only employees that are contributing to this situation are the ones that were due for step increases. It was suggested a few times that we do the step increases and not do cost of living. In a way, I'm trying to make light of it the best I can. I kind of feel like maybe Christmas vacation where Clark didn't get his bonus. I mean, it's just, I've had second reservations about doing this. I know Don had mentioned, and Wade had both mentioned that it kind of, to not give the step increases kind of goes against the policy handbook. And if we're not going to adhere to it, then how can we expect the rest of the county employees to adhere to it as well? I know that there's a kink. It seems like everything kind of gets done short notice most of the times anyway. I don't know how else to look at it other than the way I'm looking at it, so. Just have second reservations about doing that. I know Angie's got to have things in for her payroll like that. But I mean, can we discuss this more later or in a meeting, or we have to pass this right now?
So I think you need this by the end of the week for,
Oh, we were going to
or wanted it
get, so we
today.
can get, it'll take us all week to get everything entered, and then we'll start entering payroll next week.
I understand that. I get it, I do. Excuse me. But hopefully you can understand where I'm coming from.
Mr. Chairman, I voiced my opinion last week a little bit, and I'm just like Commissioner Tom, I've got mixed feelings on this. I agree with the decision, and I disagree. I've worked with And I'm not saying I have all the answers, absolutely, nobody's got all the answers. I've worked with articles of incorporation and bylaws and operating agreements and businesses all my life, and that's what this is. But we're in a policy handbook, which is basically it can be a part of an operating agreement or articles of incorporation or bylaws, whatever you want to say. And one thing you don't do in a business atmosphere, you don't go against those policies. If you can all possibly not do it. And after reviewing the handbook, we went against the policy. Just because the department heads didn't bring it to us. And I voted for not to give the step increases. And like I said, I've got mixed feelings about it. We got 32 employees that's worked here maybe 2 years, maybe 10 years, maybe 20. I don't know what category they fall into. That have worked for 2 years in most cases, knowing and depending they were going to get that step increase, that's what our policy handbook can't say. With one exception.
I know there was mention of freezing their wages till the salary study was done, but the delay of that salary study is more our fault for waiting too long to get someone hired and get the ball rolling. Now we're in a position we are with the Corona thing, so I mean, that's nobody's fault. So I just feel those that were going to get a step increase are the only ones that are contributing to this situation. Now, I agree, each department head come in here and they supported our suggestion, but hindsight being 2020 or what it is, I'm just not comfortable.
The questions to our department heads were somewhat fair, somewhat wasn't. No disrespect to anybody, because they're kind of caught off guard and brought in all at once.
I agree.
And that's probably shouldn't have been handled quite that way, but it's history. And we drive up Main Street of Burlington or drive Main Street of Leroy, and Main Streets are basically empty. I mean, it's a huge amount of people that are friends of ours have laid off. Sure, they're going to draw unemployment. They may get a $1,200 stimulus check, or may not.
Other than hairdressers are self-employed, so there's no unemployment there for them.
Yeah, it's just a tough
It's
decision.
tough.
But without following our policy handbook, to me, we've got a problem.
Okay, let's do this then. Angie, do you know, or can you get the percentage difference on just payroll with and without those step increases that were due? I thought we had the numbers.
So the 2.3 amounted to about
But
175.
But what I'm getting at is, let's not hold up Russell and our agenda. We can revisit this at the end, or surely somewhere in there we'll have time.
Again, my apologies, but I guess second guessing that decision, before I go approving this, I want to express my reservations.
We can come back to that.
Okay.
I'm sure Russell has other stuff he needs to do. You ready, Russ?
So have my monthly report that you have there. Some of the highlights off of it, I've kind of already talked a little about had some work done with the command bus. Said the tires and wheels were old style that the tire shop couldn't even get the wheel apart. So we replaced those, having some brake work done on it, some other stuff. We obviously have been doing things with the COVID response, trying to support the health department, the nursing home, and law enforcement as best we can. Been getting the deliveries from the strategic national stockpile and distributing them out as best we can. Those are pretty well dried up. Dealing with the essential critical infrastructure determinations has been interesting, and the state kind of took it over, but I don't know if that has helped much. Trying to decipher along with Wade and Randy and everybody else what all the different executive orders mean. I think we're up to 18 different executive orders now. Here's a couple of things that I got in email that you can pass around, talking about the Supreme Court's decision that the legislature couldn't deny the executive order 2018. But probably the thing that's the most interesting is, I might grab this one back for a second. The last paragraph on this explanation one says, like all emergency executive orders, violations of Executive Order 2018 are a Class A misdemeanor, subject to 1 year in jail and a $2,500 fine. However, local law enforcement agencies have significant discretion in the manner and extent to which criminal enforcement measures are used to enforce the provisions of the executive order. Meaning, they can enforce it if they want or if they don't want to. So, anyway. We were one of the few counties that got our storm spotter training in before they all got shut down. So that was a little bit of a good thing to report on. I don't know if anybody have any questions on my report or anything else. Pretty much every day, even through yesterday, Sunday was the first day since this has started, that they haven't had like a state of briefing call at 1 o'clock. But pretty much every day since this started, they've been having a 1 o'clock and a 5 o'clock call. I've tried to get on all the 1 o'clocks, the 5 o'clocks. I haven't made all of those, but probably 3/4 of them. Some of them are worth listening to, and some of them aren't. Any questions?
Appreciate everything you're doing during these very, very tough times, Russell.
Lindsay's definitely catching the brunt of it, but I'm trying to help her as much as I can.
You and Lindsay's at the fore.
I did see where you asked for assistance at the nursing home from the state. You got denied because unsuccessful.
Well, yeah, not denied. They tried. They put out a call. They have what they call K-Serve. I can't remember what that stands for.
There's nobody available to us.
Yeah.
Okay.
The state put out the request. It's kind of a list of people that they have that might be willing to volunteer that have medical certification. And they put out the call, and the nursing home told me they got one phone call from an LPN that said she might be interested. The last I talked to them, they had never got a call back. So the state tried, but there just wasn't any success. And part of it is I know of at least 1 or 2 local nurses or RNs that, I mean, New York's paying them $10,000 a week to go work in New York. And so a couple of them went to New York to work. So the ones that do the contracting throughout the country, I mean, obviously they're going to go put the money in. So.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Russell.
Look like a nice Easter dinner there.
Yeah.
Wayne, if you're ready.
Yes, sir.
How are you this morning?
Morning, Wayne.
Good morning. Special issue check for utility, City of Burlington.
Tom, you got an extra pen down there, it's either black or blue.
I can go get one.
Well, I get it, I get it. The only thing I ended up this morning was red one. I don't want to sign these documents in red.
You're gonna be lucky on this one. We only need the chairman to
Well,
sign
okay, only chairman.
it. What I have is no road permits, no zoning permits. This free dump for the landfill, I think, has been very successful. It's been very well received by the citizens of the county. So they have been using it. Of course, this week was the schedule, but they had started here last week on that. So as we'll continue that for the rest of the month. What I'll have is motions. The first one, I think, I'll go with it before I go to the rest of them, and that's going to be the 6 bridges. And so on this particular motion, as I was saying, this one's going to require, as you look in the motion or as you see in the motion, this is going to require the chairman to sign. But there are also some discussion here I needed to just get you on. Is when we started this project, we talked about that there was going to be a permit required with the railroad as far as working over on the bridge on Old Highway 50, bridge number 24. With that permit, what you have is a regular permit fee of $800. But with that $800, what you're going to find, it's going to take 6 to 8 weeks to get that permit back. All right. Of course, we couldn't enter into any type of permit prior to actually having a contractor, so we had to wait for one before we could start the other. So now, as we have a contractor and we're entering into a contract with, then the next option is an expedited permit. And what that would be to add an additional $4,250, so a total of $5,050 for the permit. In doing that one, it would normally take 10 to 15 days to do that permit. My recommendation, it's not a motion that you would have, but rather some discussion that we would have, that I'd have an understanding how to proceed, is would be to go ahead and pay the additional fee, because if we pay the 6 to 8 weeks, I mean, if we wait the 6 to 8 weeks, we only have 120 working days on this project anyway. So half of the working days are really used up on that bridge. But I leave it up to you how you'd like to move forward with that.
Since we run into this problem, could not we extend the working days for that one project? In other words, not start them until we have the permit, and then 120 working days would start on that project?
We wouldn't have, that wouldn't be a problem. The 120 working days is for all 6 bridges, and they plan on working about 2 of them at a time. So they could actually start someplace else. That's not a problem. They could start someplace else, but it will take them about half of the contract before they'd actually have the permit to be able to go to Old Highway 50 on bridge number 24. That's the only.
But bridge 24, we could extend that just project for one bridge, since this is an issue that's not their fault.
No, that's not the way to understand it on this one, Bob. What I have is I have 6 bridges, all to be done in 120 days.
I understand.
Okay. So with that is they could start any place. So and it won't take them 120 days to do one bridge. It's only going to take them a couple weeks to do one bridge per se. So for example, they could actually start, not even start on Old Highway 50, they could start the project and actually start down at Leroy. I don't know where they're going to start initially right now. They could start down there as that time is clicking for that 6 to 8 weeks.
Right. But what I'm saying is, if they make that their last bridge,
Yes.
if there happens to need a little extra time because we took half of their time to get a permit, I would have no problem with extending that.
In that scenario, as you explained that is a possibility. Yes.
Right.
If that was, say, their last bridge waiting for that permit, and then they finally got the permit, and then we had to extend the days, yes, we could do that.
Yeah.
Yes, we could.
I would have no problem with that.
What happens if you don't get the permit for 4 months and you get into November, December? How late can those projects be handled?
What you're gonna find is limitations on that cure for that polymer. And so what you may have, if you work that scenario, what you may have is you'd have to discontinue the project and then actually lay it over for the next year, this spring. for next year.
Will that come with additional costs for remobilization on their part, or?
There could be that, if those type of delays did happen, that's outside of our control. But yes, all that potentially would be discussed if something did come up like that. Which would be a change order, which would come before you for approval.
But if you did get into the fall and they had to come back next year, you're gonna have a higher cost contract real quick.
Yes, sir. Most
So
likely.
we're kind of caught between a rock and a hard place, in my opinion.
And we just don't know.
Could be.
Yes. And with everything else that's going on, we just don't really know even on the deliverables at this point. They are looking to start, though, on May the 15th. And we will have, after we get the contract signed, we'll have a pre-construction. I can give you more information as far as which bridges they plan on starting on.
You've already applied for this permit?
No, the contractor will.
Oh, the contractor has to apply for it, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir. Because they're required to also get the insurance and things associated with it.
If they would apply for that today, they'd already have 30 days, after that 120 days before they even start working anywhere.
They can't do much until we get the contract signed, and that's where we're at today. But as soon as we get the contract signed and the documents filed at the district court, then they can start taking action. Start working towards that.
Basically, the $5,000 expedited application fee, how ridiculous it is still cheaper than probably remobilization or adding a couple days to the end of the job.
Yeah. So, but we don't know, it's an unknown. They may have to cross that bridge when we get there.
Oh,
Yeah.
I guarantee if we have to go longer, it's gonna be more than.
Or else in the next year, it'd definitely be a lot.
Cross your fingers.
I would have hoped that the railroad would see the importance in this and rush along themselves, but that's the railroad. We'll leave it at that.
Well, with that, it seems, not that I was necessarily looking for a motion, but if I'm hearing this, maybe a consensus would be if it is to our benefit to go ahead and pay the additional fee. Is that?
It's not my consensus.
Then would we want to put this to a motion then, Cody, how you'd like to handle this?
I would hope that talking to them, the railroad would be willing to work with us and make some things happen, but I'm not just for dealing out more money. Let's see if it happens. Remember, just last week, we were talking about
Well, and if the
holding money because
contractor
we
has to
didn't
make
know where things
the
were.
application for the permit, then I would have hoped they would have been aware of it through the bidding process and foreseen this, but evidently not. Is that
No, the
correct or not?
No, all of that was basically during the bidding process, that it was in addition to the contract and would be subject to how the county wanted to address it as far as expediting a permit or not expediting a permit. And so we're still where we started with the contract. We just didn't know the price at that point. We had an estimate, but we did not know the price. We knew it was going to cost a little bit more. We did not know how much. This is a total of $5,050 if we're wanting an expedited permit for a right to entry permit.
The original permit can take up to 8 weeks. Is that correct?
That's correct, sir.
And we're setting it April 5th, so you're looking at May, June, you're looking at June 15th. Which that still gives us 120 days before you get into fall or winter, but
They could potentially work with that. What they would have to do is just leave that for the last one until they get their permit. And then they could work around the county for the other bridges, other locations. So it's not necessarily a must, because we do have time within that 120 days. But if there is a problem, and the permit becomes the problem, and that's the last bridge as Bob had described, then it could be basically subject to delays or mobilization in the spring of next year.
So we have a motion to enter into the contract with PBX.
That would be for
What
the
is
signing
PBX? Right.
of the contract, yes, sir.
So we need to sign the contract before they can make application. If we sign the contract with PBX and get feedback from PBX, how comfortable they feel with the need to expedite that permit or not.
I would probably have
Do they
a better
have a
handle
recommendation?
after pre-construction if you wanted to come back and.
If we got
put
the
it on
contract
hold.
signed today, could you meet with them during the week?
Yes. I can do that.
Well, if we had to, we could.
See what their
Since
schedule is.
PBX is a contractor and we have a contract with them, wouldn't that be their choice if they wanted to pay the extra $5,000 to get it done or not to meet?
It's not written in that way. It's written into basically the county would like to expedite it or not. So if you'd like, I'd like the way you're thinking on that one, Cody, is to say that we enter into the contract, then at that point I can see what their schedule is and make sure that there's not an issue with possibly a delay such as that 6 to 8 weeks. And if it's not necessarily a major issue or concern on their part, then we just pay the $800 record fee. If it is, then I would say that, we come back and address it at that point if you'd like.
I
But
agree.
that's fine.
I agree.
Okay, as long as we readdress, if they change, we readdress it.
We'll readdress that.
So we have motion 2019-30A, based upon the recommendation of the county engineer and approval as formed by the county attorney. Authorize and direct the chairman to sign contract documents with PBX Corporation of Tulsa, Oklahoma for bridge deck repairs and resurfacing for 6 county bridges, number 24, number 35, number 244, number 106, number 116, and number 165.
I so move.
Tom has moved.
Second.
Don has seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0.
All right, thank you. And if this one here, Cody, these green tabs are basically locations to sign.
Okay.
And I'll try to grab those from you before I leave
Okay.
today. Thank you. The next one would be, this is an annual request, and we have Todd that goes out for bids on our herbicide chemicals that we use for our road spraying. And so this would be something we do every year. And that would be number 29.
Motion 2020-29, based upon the recommendation of the county engineer, move to approve the engineer's request for the noxious weed department to solicit quotations and purchase as policy herbicide chemicals for the highway department's 2020 roadway shoulder spraying program.
I'll move.
All has moved. Brad has seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0.
This one here, I need to revise the motion a little bit from the one that was submitted. So, thank you. This is just a maintenance agreement for maintenance on one of our Caterpillar blades.
Paint striping first.
Paint striping first.
So same, no
In
change
the
there.
motion, yeah,
Doesn't look like
I'm
it.
ahead of you then, okay.
We have motion 2020-30, based upon the recommendation of the county engineer, move to approve the county engineer's request for authorization to solicit sealed bids for approximately 52 miles of highway paint striping, S 2001-C, at several locations in the county.
So moved.
Don has moved,
Second.
Tom has seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0.
Okay, as I was ahead just a little bit, the next motion, number 31, would be the maintenance agreement with Foley Caterpillar out of Chanute. This is something, it's a 2013 Caterpillar blade. We had also the maintenance agreement when we had purchased it new. And now what we're doing is continuing that same agreement for the most part for the next 6 years. It's 6,000 hours of 24 services.
And the way you looked at that agreement to make sure that it's kosher.
He has not. It's the same agreement that we had last time, but sure welcome.
So to charge $5.48 per hour until we get 6,000 hours on it? Is that what they're
Yes,
submitted?
yes. Up to 6,000 hours, 6,000 additional hours on it. I think they had, well, all my documents are there. So we have over 8,000 hours on it currently right now.
And 6,000 additional.
Additional hours, that's right. The nice part about this is one is we're continuing with this service. They supply all the oils, hydraulics, and we're continuing to get the Caterpillar oil that goes along with it, and their service and adjustments on the blade. Something we've been doing with quite a bit of our equipment. We have these agreements already on the blade, and we also have an agreement on our one of our loaders at the landfill as well. And excavator too.
Like $1,370 a service for that piece of equipment when you buy it all.
As I say, these agreements we've had on several pieces.
Motion 2020-31, based upon the recommendation of the county engineer and approval as to form by the county attorney. Move to approve the purchase of the maintenance agreement for Foley Caterpillar of Chanute, Kansas for county motor graders in the amount of $5.48 per hour. With equipment usage for the planned term up to 6,000 hours for 24 services as per contract number FM 200406-015. Funds to be paid from the Road and Bridge Fund. Fred has moved.
Second.
Tom has seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0.
Okay, the other one the last one, number 32, is for assorted tires. And so these tires are not for stock. What they have is we have use on equipment that need tires replaced. So we're looking at approximately around $50,000 of tires.
Are these extra large tires that can be able, are you going
Kind of give you an example.
locally or?
You're gonna find everything from tractor tires to truck tires. So 11R 22.5 by 16, 340 by 85 R24s, 380s by 85 R30s. So, and then we got 14s by R24s. So we have various sites, various sort of tires.
Are there any big ones that the locals can't bid on, or?
We don't find that necessarily, say, for example, if you're looking at Barr or Leroy. I mean, of course, they have to actually get a second party that they order from. And
They can do
so, they'll order it from there.
Okay.
Of course, always our locals do have the 5% advantage for buying or purchasing local. So,
Motion 2020-32, based upon the recommendation of the county engineer, move to approve the county engineer's request to solicit formal bids for the assorted tires.
So moved.
Dawn has moved,
Second.
Tom is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carries 5-0.
okay, what I have is a couple talking points that I wanted to, well, of course, we have construction zone as well. Okay, as you can see in construction zone, we have some bridge repair. It was at the east abutment. The angle iron that came off the abutment there actually was a pothole that was repaired several months ago. Now we're trying to repair that portion of that abutment. So that's over on bridge repair on 28th Road between C and D. Crossroad replacement on 27th E to C, and some crossroad replacements, entrance pipes. So Old Highway 50 shoulder repair. We have, we're also continuing to boom mow and starting to seed. I know this week wouldn't look like very favorable because it's cool as it is, but the weather is starting to warm up, and we have some sign maintenance that we're doing as well. As we're talking about temporary road closures on 17th Road, just an update on it is the guardrail is installed on the south side of 17th. The north side last week, the shouldering was completed. Now we're waiting for the guardrail contractor to actually start this week on the north side. We're expecting him to actually be here tomorrow, and it should only take him a couple days, and then hopefully we'll be finished with the guardrail this week. But we still have the expansion joint that we'll put in possibly this week or next week, depends on the weather, most likely next week with the temperatures. But that's okay. We have actually those lights clear for the rest of the month. So we also had last week, we also had Blackstone that came to the landfill, and what they were checking for was embankment material. This would be the clay material that we're needing to use for cell number 4. And so we're working with them right now as far as the survey data, and we'll be sharing information to make sure that we have enough clay material to be able to use on cell number 4. We plan on starting that. At this point, we had a slight delay, but we plan on starting that about the 1st of May. For the most part, if the weather continues to hold, we should be getting also this week the bids for the liner that we had put out. And so we should be coming back with the liner information and bids here next week. So we'll keep moving forward on the landfill. We had some damage to, actually it was a break-in. It was reported to the sheriff's office, and this is the blade that we're storing up there at Levo. And so what they had done is they cut the lock on the diesel fuel tank, but at this point we we could not find where they had actually removed any fuel because the reading was the same as he had left it the night before. But they also broke into the toolbox that we store our motor oil in. And so some of the motor oil and hydraulic oil was stolen. We were called out and had damage here Friday over on 16th Road, about 800 feet east of Contour Lane. There's an asphalt section of road, 3 foot by 6 foot. The edge on the north side was damaged. It's going to require some repair. It was reported, as we understand, basically somebody had stolen a farmer's tractor. And so the front end portion of the tractor actually dug into the edge of the road as it was coming out of the ditch. And so that's where they had damaged it. And I understand that they had found the tractor a little further down the road. So, and we've also had a pothole over on Oxon between 22nd and 23rd. What we found there was we had laid up stone, and in the laid up stone where the water was coming through, actually was washing back through the stone back underneath the road itself. And so that was an easy repair, and so we had repaired it, and we probably have some more work to do on that laid up stone and that structure. So the talking point I have would be for summer help. What we'd like to do is, I know that we're wanting to start our summer help. We normally have started this month, but with other things going on, we felt it would be best to go ahead and start it on May the 4th. We also, too, is since some of these summer help are young men that basically go to school, that they'd be going on to college, we generally don't start them until about the middle or latter part of May. But we'd like to go ahead and start everybody May the 4th is where we're at. We have 9 individuals. Some of them are been here before, and then we have actually one retiree that will be able to be a big benefit for the department as well. But what I'd like to do on this one, just have that discussion. If that's all right, I'd like to go ahead and get those folks started. I know I already have the motion to hire the summer help, but it also takes basically the physicals to get those things going, and we would start those this week. If you're okay with
The
this.
retiree is not one that took the early out,
No, sir.
and there's not a problem with capers or anything with bringing them back.
I don't believe so, and I believe there was actually something in there that allows the retirees to come back due to the current situation that we're in. I can double check. I'll double check that with Amy.
Capers has a thing where if you're newly retired, and because of COVID-19, you need to bring somebody back, they're not gonna penalize you, and it won't count against the employee. So,
This one's been gone for a couple of years.
okay, I don't know, it's a newly, so
Yeah.
it may be a key.
But he won't come back at the wages he left at, right?
No, where it's gonna be there is, I felt that would fall within our temporary, so that's like an MV3. So that's where we top out our summer help, is MV3s. So he would fall within that. So that does not require a motion, but if you had any discussion, otherwise I'd like to go ahead and start those folks around May the 4th, and I'll bring you the CP2s accordingly at that point.
That's as long as you got to work for them.
Well, we actually, with that talent, we're looking at the availability for our landfill as far as doing our cell. So we're gonna have that additional equipment operator that has that capability or skills and be able to help us out there. So that's my report. Unless you have any questions. Okay,
Thank you.
all right.
Bob's, is not going to be here today. So,
Lindsay around?
and on.
Call her. Are you going to get her, Mike?
He had his son.
You ready, Lindsay?
No, it's the morning.
Never.
Yeah, non-stop right now. So we didn't do our press releases over the weekend. Most counties are only doing them with their first case, maybe their first death. So we gave our staff a little break this weekend on that. But we are now up to 40 cases. So we did add 2 more over the weekend, and we've already done their investigations. And one of them is directly linked to Life Care, and the other appears to be community acquired at this time. So we are still in the middle of that investigation, but it is not linked to Life Care at this time. So we also had another patient pass away last week. So we now have 2 deaths associated with the Life Care outbreak. And we are still continuing to test. We do have more recoveries to announce today. We haven't made all of our calls yet, so I want to verify all that before I say that publicly. But it looks like today we will have some more as well. So at least we have a little bit of good news. We are working with KDHE. They came down last Wednesday, and we made a spreadsheet and put in all of the information from the Life Care associated cases. And at that time, and as of Saturday, it looked like we are on the downward slope of the epi curve, which is a good thing. We're continuing to test people as soon as we get them there at Life Care. So we're trying to stay on top of it. So hopefully those numbers stay the way they stay on the downhill side of the curve. I don't know, any questions for me beyond that?
What's it take to establish a full recovery? You know, some of these people's had it for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and the recovery numbers are way, way, way behind, which we knew they would be.
Mm-hmm.
What's it take to get classified as a recovery number?
Yes, so once you have a good day of feeling well, trust me to say that patients can tell when they start to feel better. They know. And so we start counting that day. You have to have 3 days in a row of good days in order to say you're recovered. You have to have, it's either 3 fever-free days, but since not everybody has a fever, you have to have marked improvement for 3 days. And you have to, it has to at least been a week since your onset of
Gonna
symptoms.
ask what's
Yeah,
the minimum amount?
whichever is longer. So we have a little chart we use to help figure that out, and we're calling these people daily. that are in isolation, asking how they're doing, so we're able to keep up on them. So, yeah, even through the weekends and Easter, and we call them and check in. Any other questions?
Have you heard anything about this 15 feet?
I haven't.
It just got mentioned a couple of times. I didn't know whether that was a rumor or just.
I haven't, and quite honestly, it's very difficult to keep up with the latest on everything, but I will look into that.
They mentioned yesterday on news that people facing each other, they could travel 15 feet in the air. Is what was mentioned. I don't know
It
what.
just mentioned a couple of times before we started meeting. It's like, I hadn't heard it yet, so I just thought I'd see if you heard.
I will check on that today. Anything else?
Appreciate everything you're doing and the workload that you're under, Lindsay.
Thank you.
And that whole team, and your whole team.
Thank you. They've been pretty awesome. So we're trying. I did take last Thursday off. That was nice to have a day, a break, and it went well. They handled everything just fine. So I think we have to take those now and then. We're working at it. So definitely changes minute by minute. So.
Thank you.
All right, thanks guys.
Lindsay. Randy?
Yes, just check in with the commission. I know our decision to shut down Coffee County Lake ends on April 15th.
You have a recommendation to extend it?
I think so. I think given the numbers over the weekend, I talked to Dawn on Friday and we bounced back and forth against, or about ways that we could if we decided to open the lake back up. I think it's just too early. I think with the numbers still climbing and the fact that we do have one community-based COVID-19, I think it'd be premature. We've been battling the core issue with fishermen around that area, and we've been aggressively patrolling that. We've been working with the Corps and trying to get them to take some action, which they wouldn't. And so it was left up to us, and we would have had to shut down a lot of county roads in order to shut down access to John Redmond, and that's almost, to me, impossible. And so with that, I think if that level of fishermen, which maybe will slow down with the cold weather, but then if you were to add to it the lake side, which is a different set of fishermen that are more lake boat type deal, the numbers would increase even more, which the local convenience stores are. I checked with them. They're not in favor of adding that outside, given what some of them have gone through. I get it. I mean, I get it. I do get it. And could we handle it if you decide to open the lake up? We can handle it. We'll do what's necessary, and we got things in place that when that day comes. I just don't think it's now. But would I do it for 2 weeks?
If it were me, I would recommend 2 weeks. Things may change.
Out to like May 1st, and nothing says, is that what you're thinking?
Well, the 29th.
29th.
Redress at the 27th.
And I think that's probably, and if something changes drastically between now and then, we've got commission meeting next week that we can come back and say, hey, we're leveling out, things are looking good. We can do these measures to do it. I personally would like to buy 1 more week at least. I know I would like to get the lake open back up just because I think that mindset of progressing in positive directions, but I think given the fact that our community is still addressing numbers that are increasing, I just think it just adds a whole nother dynamic that we don't want to deal with right now.
And Coffee County Fishing Lake is unique in that it does require the commitment from staff
It does.
to maintain it. It's not just opening a gate and
Right,
here you go.
right. And I will say that the numbers, we checked pretty close the boats that were fishing at John Redmond this last week. And the vast majority were Wyandotte and Johnson County by far, and Missouri tags. That's probably 98% of the people we dealt with were either from the metro area on the Missouri side or the Kansas side. And those are still hot spots. And that's what I'm afraid of is the fact they're still hot spots. I'm not judging anybody, but those are hot spots. And until their numbers start to go down, I just have concerns. So I would suggest that the commission extend it 2 more weeks from the 15th, and we can readdress it, and I'll stay on top of it week by week. And we can go from there, unless the commission would rather do something different.
My suggestion is to go ahead and definitely extend it. I guess I got a question. Are there very many people show up from Wyandotte County or any other county unaware of it being shut down?
No,
Okay.
very few people have showed up, not knowing the word spread. You know, we've got our regulars that come down, and that's the ones that are really, you know, they're chomping at the bit, obviously. They call daily, wanting to know and stuff. So every now and then you get a boat that comes down that by chance to see if the lake is open, and then they go right on over to John Redmond. And so they haven't wasted a trip. We haven't heard any of those complaints. So our regular fishermen, Don has done a great job out there. They all know who the regular fishermen are, and they talk to them pretty regular. So those are the guys that are really chomping at the bit. And, I get it from their perspective. I think it's too premature. I looked at everything over the weekend and just things we dealt with and stuff. I just don't think we need that. So it would be my recommendation to the commission to extend it 2 weeks from the 15th to the, what'd you say?
April 29th.
April 29th.
Move
But
the Coffee County Fishing Lake remain closed until April 29th.
And then if anything changes before then, I'll come back before the commission with a new recommendation to readdress it.
So moved.
Don has moved. For a second.
Second.
On the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries by the.
Wait, what do we need to do to go into that jail on the water bond? The HVAC guys have started that HVAC project, if you remember, sometime back to separate off in the jail, that the jail offices and that HVAC, they've started that this week. So I felt that was important enough to go ahead and do that. We're taking precautions. Obviously, we screen them when they come in from Modern Air, but they are doing that project. So that's the noise you may or may not hear this week, next 2 or 3 days. So we'll get that project done. And of course, Modern Air is great to work with. So, but other than that, it's been an interesting weekend, to say the least. But there is hope. There is hope. I'm waiting on an answer on that thing I talked to you about. That, see if it does get addressed, if not. Then, just give you a copy of it for your records. On anything on waiting for an answer from her. And then, negative, decline. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Randy.
That concludes our agenda. Brings us back to resolution 772M, resolution establishing the pay scale and classification for the employees of Coffee County, Kansas.
All this resolution does is add to CPI, right?
Right.
Nothing else.
Were you able to find those numbers for Sandy, or do you need to go
Well, I
back to your
just
office?
did a quick rundown. If we went with all steps that were originally put in with cost of living as $304,301. Just those with steps alone and cost of living is $69,199. So the difference would be $235,102.
Yeah, I couldn't understand what you were saying, I'm sorry.
So just steps alone
Steps alone was 74, that,
with the 2.3.
well, steps by itself,
Okay, I don't have that breakdown.
because
I
it's
just
74.
I just did a quick rundown because I didn't have that, but 69,199.13.
We passed this has nothing to do with the steps anyway, right? It does.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't.
It's just,
I mean, this is just a
CPI.
CPI.
yes.
So this, it's actually, we're talking two different things.
Right.
So, yeah, and we already, yeah.
The 2.3 was in what, 175 or something, 174?
Well, with everyone, including steps, is $304,301.
Those numbers are not, if I recall right, the 2.3 was around $175,000. And last week, the 32 steps was 74,000, which would put it somewhere in the neighborhood of 250, and now we're 304.
Well, you didn't have sheriff's office last week. You didn't have,
Well, the sheriff's office putting in that to start with,
you didn't have their numbers or the jail. There was a few departments that hadn't turned their.
I realize
sheets
that,
in.
I figured it's all of them.
You got them now, right?
Yeah.
Okay, okay, I was gonna say, I thought that they
Just
had
back
turned them
then,
in.
yeah.
Okay,
We just had a few
okay.
that didn't get them yet.
Well, I guess I'll just refer my concerns over to Wade then, because last week, I don't know if you were here this morning when we were gonna pass a resolution on the wages, and I had some concerns on not following policy handbook. I know we brought department heads in here, and each department head kind of agreed to what we were doing. By the same token, the only ones that are contributing to this situation are the ones that deserve a step increase. That was mentioned several times that, we cut the cost of living and give them their steps so that everybody contributes, or we just, I'm just having second reservations about not passing out step increases, just because those are the only people that are actually not, they're being hindered, if you will, as far as financial situation. So I guess I'll refer back to you. Are we still violating the policy handbook, even though each department had come in and kind of put in the spotlight, in my opinion, and it's a surprise, if you will, for them.
And before I answer your question, maybe there's some additional input or feedback that others might want to present, and then kind of address it as a whole. I know last week, we kind of had this situation that evolved over the morning and resulted in bringing the issue up, calling the department heads in, and then kind of sitting tight for a week would probably be the best wording. Bring it back up today, so maybe over the course of a week, there's been some additional thought. It sounds like you've had some additional thought that's gone into it, maybe some others as well. So
Last week they said it'd be 32 step increases that didn't happen without the sheriff's department information in there. Does that number 32 still stay there? Or does that go up because I know they've got stuff?
No, because you guys weren't giving any step increases, right?
There was a few, there's not
There's a few. I know when I went through it 2 weeks ago, I estimated somewhere around 40 plus, low 40s. But that's not being told to come here with everything either. That I estimated to be in the low 40s. I was kind of surprised they only said 32. And I expected that 32 included the sheriff's department. So we're not getting all the numbers that we need to make a decision in my mind.
which, some of that will change. We've had a few resignations and stuff on, I think, a couple of them that will do for step increases. So those
Yeah.
numbers will go back down for us.
You had a few raises too, didn't you? Huh?
Hmm.
Do you have a few you gave raises to as well? Or?
Who?
Mike and,
I guess my question would be, are we
They should
here
discuss
to
that.
discuss whether the fact we're gonna give the CPI or whether we're gonna give step increases and not give the CPI? Because if we're not going to discuss not giving the CPI, we can pass the resolution and move it on, and then we can discuss about the step increases. Instead of trying to combine the two together, we're not gonna do the one, let's don't worry about it. Let's just, I mean, we approved the resolution, we've already approved it, but we agreed to it, so.
So that would be, I guess, the initial question that the board has to decide is if the cost of living 2.3 COLA raise is going to be reconsidered, then that needs to be done before moving on to the, or maybe in combination with dealing with the step increases. I mean, the two, in my opinion, are sort of intertwined in a way. I mean, you can agree to grant the step increases because, as we discussed last week, it is an issue that appears to be in conflict with our policy manual. And I think what was done last week was a good step in dealing with or addressing that particular issue, but it still remains unresolved. So there has to be some final answer. And whether you move forward or whether you don't, I think that's a decision that you would have to make. But the 2.3, one option, I think it was discussed last week, is to remove that and grant the step increases, and then later on down the road, potentially address the 2.3, or to move forward with the 2.3 and not do anything. But the issue still remains with that particular wording in the policy manual that we have to operate under at this point in time. But a decision has to be made one way or another. And unfortunately, there's no, what I call, the wording of that particular sentence is not the best and probably will need to be addressed at a later date and time. But right now, it's where we are. I think you heard from several different department heads, even the ones that agreed, their reluctance in moving forward without the step increases, as they felt like their employees had earned the step increase. And that tension between our current pandemic and other intervening factors. I mean, some other jurisdictions, even in Kansas, have completely wiped out a good part of their entire budget overall, and they've cut numerous areas within the county, within departments, and that's not what's being requested here. I mean, I think it's a judgment call on your part, but to be consistent, to be transparent, that's why it was brought up last week. It does appear to be in conflict with the policy manual. We had one definite department head who did not agree with it, one who took no position one way or another, I guess would be the best way, and then the others agreed with it with the understanding that, or believe that later on down the road, it could go retroactive. And although there's no guarantee for that either, is my understanding or my impression of the dialogue and conversation. So does that answer your question, Tom?
Yeah, kind of.
Kind of, it's.
Well, I mean, I get it. I mean, and I, sorry to throw a kink in this, but like I say, I thought about it all week and it's just like, I don't know. I just feel like the only people that are contributing to this are the ones that, for the step increases. I know we suggested freezing wages till the salary study was done, but that's not been completed. One is because we took so long as a commission to get somebody on board to do the salary study. Now we got the COVID situation, so it's not their fault. Now, am I saying not do the 2.3? Not really. I just want us all to agree on something. Well, you know, and I know it's holding up Angie's book work here, and we gotta do something today. But I just want, I guess, everybody else's opinion. I mean, Don's expressed his about the policy handbook as well as I have. I mean, you brought it up last week. I don't want to set us up for another potential lawsuit in some form or another. I don't know if that's for putting it out there as blunt as I can. You know, I'm not going to be one setting us up for a lawsuit if that's if we're breaking policy handbook.
My thought after thinking about it all week, and I got the highest respect for everybody, and I voted for the 2.3, and I don't like to go back on that. And I know we've got an obligation to our citizens to control expenses the best we can, but we also got an obligation to our employees.
And I think in the present situation, as far as our expenses should go way down because we're not going to this conference, or we're not going to this class, we're not going to some conference in Salina or Wichita or nothing like that. So everybody, I mean, I've seen what we spend in a month in that, and that's a lot of money. So with that being gone.
My thought is to, you know, last week it was 32 step increases for $74,000, which is $2,400 per employee. And I guess those numbers have changed. My thought is to, and that affects 32 people, $2,400, which is a sizable amount of dollars for those number of people. My thought is instead of doing the 2.3, is maybe go to 1.5 or 1.6. Well, I don't know what that magic figure is. That affects every employee we've got. On an annual basis, $300 a year, maybe $400, depending on where the salary is. That's saving almost as much to take care of the step increases. So we're not increasing our salary anymore. We've already done 2.3. And also in the last 8 years, we've been over and above the CPI by 7.35%. So our employees as a whole have been treated very, very well. And I think they continue to be pointed very well, but I am having trouble taking step increases away from somebody that's been looking forward to that for 2 years. And trying to keep it on the same level of cost to our taxpayers.
All of them are 2 years. Some of them
be one.
Some of them got a promotion last year, and now they're 6 months later, they're getting another promotion.
Two of them are, I realize that.
So
It's impossible to get this thing on a total level playing field. Because there was 2 of them that got sizable increases last year, and now another step. But I don't know, you can't eliminate all those issues and all those discrepancies.
And I agree to what you're saying there, but there was 32 and there's 2 of them benefiting, the other 30.
Real quick in 1 year, yeah.
The other 30 are being penalized.
But you just can't step in there and pick this person out, this person out. You cannot do that.
Can't do it.
So my thought is maybe go have everybody assume a little bit of responsibility.
We're talking less than 1% of our annual salary.
Exactly.
countywide.
And like I say, I'll go back to it again. I mean, I'm not saying eliminate the 2.3. Again, not going to this conference or that class or that's a lot of money in a month's time we're saving. Or not spending, I should put that. I don't know about saving, but we're not spending.
If I understood your suggestion, Don, change the COLA to 1.5 and then give the people who do their step increase, and that makes up the difference. Is that what I heard you?
That's, and I don't have the exact figures because it changed by 50,000. But that's my thought process right now. That lets every employee we got stand a little bit of cost and yet not take the step increases away from those that have earned it. And like I said, there's no way to ever get this on the playing field the way our structure is. But that's what I've been coming from for the last 10 days, 2 weeks. And I know I supported the mission, the first, all of us supported it. But I've had a lot of second thoughts after I reviewed it. Second thoughts since I reviewed the policy.
Email.
So before maybe fully taking up that particular issue, see what, if there's a way that Angie can see what the difference in those figures would be, the 1.5, and then how that would affect the step increases, and see if that somehow gets it in the same ballpark with the final figures.
So from this, and this real quick here, from the resolution, just given an average yearly salary on everything here, I come up with $7,427,000 annual payroll, give or take, rounding and going through it quick. 1.5% puts that at 111,000. Our 2.3, which what we thought earlier was right around 170,000. So what we're talking about with the steps, if the 70,000 plus or minus for the step increases that we're withholding, that comes to less than 1% of our total annual payroll.
Greg, you got any comments here?
Well,
Yes, Mike.
again, I'm probably not gonna be very popular. But, my position is that I did not want to rescind the 2.3 because that was something we approved weeks earlier. And because of that, in my mind, that's done. My other position is that I'm not happy about freezing wages, if that's what people think. If there were any other way to hold the budget down, I would do it, and I intend to hold the budget down in other ways. This is just one step in my mind of what I intend to vote for. Because I intend to vote against increasing the budget. In my mind, emergencies such as a pandemic require emergency measures. And the salary freeze was an emergency measure, and it was just one part of what, in my mind, I'm hoping for and taking other emergency measures to hold the budget down. I got on TV last night, and in Topeka, they were showing a car line of, you couldn't see the end of it, people picking up food because they didn't have jobs. And I don't know, I've been poor. And I know what it's like. And I'm sure some of the rest of you have too. But I'm thinking that we're sitting in a pretty decent position here. We're not in the greatest position, but we're in a good position. As far as I'm concerned, I'm standing by what we've done so far. That's all I've got to say.
I think people need to realize, I've got emails and other things, and a lot of them weren't accurate, but I think people need to realize, we're not saying we're not going to do it. If we're in a good position when we get through this, I think our full intent is to come back and give those retroactive back to the time they earn them. We're giving them the time already retroactive back to it. It's just that let's just wait a little bit and let's see where we're at. I agree with Fred. I don't want to take the 2.3 away. That shows we're giving something. That's probably more than a lot of people of our residents are going to get this year anyway. But I think the employees ought to be just glad that they've got a job. And I'm not threatening their job. I'm just saying, we all still have a job here in the county. I mean, let's just step back a little bit. It's not like we're saying we're going to take your stuff away from you. We're going to pay you. If at all possible, we're going to pay you. But we're just situation too. We have a limit on our taxes. We can only spend so much money. If something does come up and we really need it and we spend it for that, then what are we going to do? I mean, realize, yeah, maybe for emergency situations, we can do something different, but I think my guys, I agree with Fred. I mean, let's get real. This is real life, people. This is not, I don't know what to say. It's just the way some people approach it. I don't know. I'm Fred. I'm going to stay with Fred for the time being on this. And I do realize it. Yes, this is all budgeted for this year, but if something drastic happens, our tax limit the state has put on us, still not going to let us go over our tax limit. So this is where I'm at with it.
You know, if we don't do the step increases now, we somewhat are assured or maybe convinced, and I'm not sure what the consensus is, that 6 months down the road, we're going to go back and make this retroactive, and that message is out there. There's no reason not to allow step increases now. No reason not to, when we're almost assuring them that we're going to make a retroactive, although that's not in documented minutes. That's the reason I think the step increases don't penalize a third of our employees that have worked hard and earned it and expected it. And like I said, I got the fullest respect for everybody's thoughts. But my thought is we leave a message out there that will pretty well assured we'll make it retroactive. There's no reason not to allow it now. And maybe we shouldn't back off to 2.3. With that backing off a little, that does let everybody share a little bit in that cost saving. And like Tom said, how much money we're going to save in this next 12 months or 6 months, whatever it is, and not going to all of our meetings. The cost savings there might make up more than, because those gets into thousands of dollars.
Each month.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, that's just in addition to what we're trying.
That's in addition, absolutely correct, absolutely.
And in 6 months, you don't know the conditions are going to be any better or as good as they are now.
And we have no idea what the long term is.
So that's where I'm.
I could look at this another way. Let's just don't give anybody CPI this year. Let's give the step increases. Let those people let them have it if that's what they want. I mean, don't give anybody CPI.
My second thoughts are not because I spoke to anybody that thought they were deserving of a step increase. I spoke to employees that weren't up for a step increase, and that's what their opinion on it was as well. Why are they being penalized and we're not penalized? That's probably the wrong choice of words. So why are they pitching in and the rest of us aren't?
I haven't talked to any employees, and I haven't talked to any commission. So I didn't feel like it's right to go to one commission, you didn't have the right to go to the other three. Because everything I'm saying is absolutely my thought, and the experiences that I've had over a number of years.
But the elephant in the room is our policy manual. And if it didn't have that language, if it had some sort of statement within it that in an emergency situation, or there's an emergency declaration by the local governing body, by the governor, and it gave you that latitude. But we're in a day and time where this is kind of new charter territory and unexpected.
Since you mentioned that, fine, that's our policy, and I kind of like to follow our policy. I thought this might be in dire need, so fine. I'm gonna tell you what I would suggest. Let's follow our policy, let's give them there, but let's don't give any CPI, because our policy doesn't say we have to give a CPI. So let's just take CPI away, give the step increases, and go from there.
That is an option, and that's an option that would be not be contrary to the policy and the way it's written, and that would save money, because I think that's a pretty significant difference between the
That's my compromise.
$74,900 that at least it looks like for the people who are eligible for that step increase.
With the total value going to 304, that's probably gonna change that 74 up to 80 or 90. Because we don't know the exact number
And
of step increases.
that I don't know. That's what I had last week.
We don't know those exact numbers on each side.
So you're saving money by not giving CPI, and you're spending money by giving step increases, and it should be a pretty well average out. And then we're back in the same situation. If we have it, we do. If we don't, we don't.
Cody's calculating.
I'm sorry, Tom?
Cody's calculating for us.
Yeah.
Again, I apologize for throwing Keith, but I just,
There's not, I think your statements are well taken, Tom.
just like I say, I mean, people who get the step increases are the only ones contributing to this situation. So, that was my thought on
I was gonna bring it back up, so
Thank
you just.
it. Do you think along the same lines I was, or no?
Amend the policy manual too.
I'm sorry, Cody.
We can change the policy manual too.
Not to apply to. Not to. I don't think by law you can change a ruling to apply to a certain deal. Can you?
I think having that, I mean, you could change the policy manual,
Global pandemic clause.
but to make it retroactive might create its own
Yeah, that's what.
maze of.
Change the policy manual and reissue the motion.
But what Wade's getting our policy manual, so April 1st was the date. So, I mean, make a retroactive, you can't go back and make a policy retroactive before that date, can you? Just do.
So I think anytime you do anything that is retroactive, there's very few exceptions where that will not create their own issues later on down the road. And this, you're affecting someone's, what I would characterize as, and maybe it's not a property right, but it's similar to a property right. You're affecting that property right and a certain wage. I think it would be potentially problematic, and I don't have any research or anything right now that would, I can show you, but just thinking about it out loud, I'd be very careful to do that. Now, moving forward, that's a whole different story. Because
The resolution, we agreed to it, but until we pass the resolution, it's not official for the CPI. Is that correct?
and it's not,
Then it's not a requirement by our policy.
the CPI.
Yeah.
I think right now, under the current times and the current situation and climate, not only locally, but statewide, nationwide, we do have some discretion there. And I think as far as policy goes, the policy that we're mainly concerned with here is the policy that deals with the step increases, because that is the crux of the concern here. And that affects a small portion of the workforce for the county. The CPI affects the entire workforce for the county. So if you're affecting the entire workforce for the county, that's significantly different in my mind than just a small portion.
There's where I'm coming from as well. Now, whether we give the CPI or 2.3 or not, that would have to be a group agreement, but I just.
And maybe while you're considering that, since I think next would be roundtable, I at least want to go into maybe an update on the compensation study HR project, and I'll collectively refer job description update. I'll collectively refer to them as projects. I've been in contact with McGrath, Lisa Eichel, and she may be watching online right now just to see where we are and how our current pandemic will affect the progress and being able to begin the project, move on the project. And although it changes some of the dynamics of on-site visits and on-site meetings with at the local level, that doesn't mean that things can't still be moving behind the scenes, which they are. So in speaking with Lisa, my understanding, she is wanting to set up a virtual meeting with the department heads as soon as this week to introduce McGrath, what their company, that company is about, and then introduce herself as the lead consultant that will be working with Coffee County on this project. In doing so, she would be requesting group feedback and input from the department heads, kind of an initial getting to know kind of each other. And then from there, there'll be a break off into meeting with likely individually, maybe virtually, until we get to the point where she can show up on site, each department head, each elected official, and get their input and feedback. And then later on down the road, ultimately to meet with employees. Obviously, employees would be, everything would be, the preference would be to meet in person. But I mention this because I think it's important for the board to know and for county employees and maybe the public to know that the projects collectively have not come to a screeching halt. Just the way they have to move forward in application is just a little bit different. And, you know, Zoom, virtual meetings. I don't know if anybody watched on Saturday morning, but the Kansas Supreme Court met and had oral arguments by Zoom, and they were posted so you could watch it live on Zoom starting at 9 o'clock. I mean, it's not like, is it the ideal way to do it? No, but things can still progress, including this project. There's quite a bit of data that has been provided to the lead consultant as it relates to this project, and I think that data can be sorted through some of the data that will finalize the project. We'll have to wait till a little bit later time, but it doesn't mean that things aren't moving forward. And I want to stress that because I think in this current pandemic, the impression is that nothing is going to be happening, and it has waited for a significant period of time. Part of that was on me, but the nature of what the initial goal was kind of changed at the last minute too, to include the HR audit side of things. So to stay within the legal parameters and within legal boundaries, we had to sort of backtrack a little bit. And the delay has not been intentional, it's been so that the board stays within its legal requirements. So, and I think we're well on our way there. So.
I'm just gonna throw out that we could talk this forever. It seems to be that some seem to think that we ought to give the step increases. And some think maybe we should hold off on them. I'm willing to compromise, and I'll give the step increases, but let's do away with CPI so everybody has a hand in it. A little sacrifice for right now.
Kind of what's your position right now? So we all four kind of voiced our opinion. What do you feel like?
Personally, I'm okay with giving the CPI and giving the steps that we're doing in time anyway.
I kind of thought that might be able to use your work where you're at.
I understand Fred's concern, and I think we do need to look at doing everything we can to start saving some money around here.
And I do agree
I
with
don't
Fred's
think-
concern too.
Yes, absolutely.
I don't think that saving less than 1% on our payroll right now, just because of some step increases, is the place to do it right now.
I understand that. My only question is, when do we start?
We kind of have to start today, is that not correct, Andy? For your books?
No, I mean,
No,
do we
start
start
saving.
cutting back?
That's what I'm trying to do. And cut back, let's cut CPI, give the step increases. And then let's look at our policy afterwards.
I could go either way on that. I mean, we're contributing 2.3% as far as our salaries. Everybody in here is contributing 2.3% to the situation. Everybody in the county that draw the county paychecks contributing instead of 32 people. That's we described the best way. That's just my take on it. Now, if you want, I could go either way on the 2.3 and the steps, but I just don't like singling out 30-some people.
I think we owe it to the taxpayers to try to do something at the present time. I think we always owe it to the taxpayers. I think I've said that for 12 years, but at the present time, I think we do, and I think it would be a good gesture, a show of faith that we're willing to give a little bit too. So,
And that way we won't be violating any policy manual book.
exactly. And I would go for step increase only because that's what our policy says, and
And the policy can be revisited later, and I'm sure it will after we deal with this, but I think it's important to make sure, since it has become such a point of discussion as it relates to the step increases, it's in the policy manual. It says what it says. I didn't write it. I don't think any of you wrote it. And you have to operate within the four corners of that document. And if you don't, then where else is there going to be some give? So we expect employees to operate within the confines of that document. And I think it's important that the board do the same, because that's where the board gains its ultimate credibility, not only with the members of this organization, but with the public as well.
And I agree with that.
So you're telling us because of the policy book, we are legally bound to honor the step increases?
Although I'm sure there's some latitude given to the board, that would be up to a finder of fact if there were some sort of challenge to it, and I'm not sure. I mean, we're in a unique day and time, so with the pandemic, are they gonna give some latitude to the board? I don't know, but the problem is, and the words on paper carry great weight when you go and look to the intent of what should and should not occur. So
I'll just say, I've been here and I've had other boards that's make an exception to the policy, and I voted against it. And since we're emphasizing this is our policy, I will go for the step increases, but I'm willing to not go to CPI because we're not mandated to have to do that.
And I fully understand, Bob. My thought is, since we've already totally voted the 2.3 in,
But we have to pass the resolution.
I'm one, not to take everything away from those 150 employees. My thought is to allow them maybe the 1.5%. But not take everything away from all of our employees. But we gotta find some common ground here to move forward and fully accept and agree to what this final decision is. My thought is not to take the CPI 100% away from our employees. Give them let them know we've got a little bit of confidence in them and not take everything away. You get a 2.3% increase on somebody that's making $20 an hour, and most of our employees as a whole are above that. 2.3 on 20 cents is 46, that's $1,000. So if you take everything away from it, it'll average $1,000 to $1,200 an employee. And I can understand that savings because that's substantial savings too. But I think to keep everything on a level playing field, we need to work with all of our employees.
Explain it to the taxpayers, how come they need to keep paying the taxes? So our employees in the county, which we have good salaries, we're gonna give them more, but you may be out of the job out here. But I want you to keep paying your taxes so we can pay our employees more. Explain that, Don. Explain it, get right up here and explain it to the taxpayers.
There's no way to keep everything on a level playing field. 3 weeks ago, we voted for CPI with no reservation. And all of a sudden, we're taking that 2.3 to 0. And to me, that probably isn't quite good.
2 weeks ago, we weren't standing 8 foot apart from each other in a grocery store.
That's exactly right.
I'm sorry, Tom.
3 weeks ago, we weren't standing 8 foot apart from each other in a grocery store either.
Yeah, total different program.
So if the 2.3 had not already been passed, I would have voted against it in the first place with the situation that we're in now. But since it was passed, I don't know if I can take that away. But I'm probably gonna vote my conscience and let it go with that. I'm not sure that we do not have the ability. I'm not sure that commissioners don't have the ability to step outside of their policy book with exception. if the exception warrants it.
I think we can.
I mean, the commission has done it
But
before.
that's not, to me, that's not the issue. To me, the issue is 30 people are sacrificing something, and 150 or not.
Well, if we're not gonna do it retroactively, they definitely are.
Yeah.
But if
So
we
why
are,
can't we do, why
But
can't
if
we
we
do
are,
the 2.3 retroactive? What's the difference?
That's gonna be a nightmare too.
I'm serious. Oh, the whole thing's
For
gonna
us
be,
to go back and try to figure.
what's
two
the
points.
other way be?
We're considering retroactive, it just needs to be done now.
Again, I'm not saying take away the 2.3, I'm just saying I don't think 30 people ought to be.
To me, there were,
It makes sense to take away the 2.3, just, and is that not what this resolution is doing, is approving that?
But this resolution approves the 2.3.
So we really haven't, I mean, although we voted for it, it hasn't been approved.
It hasn't been approved till the resolution is approved. You know, a few years ago, there was 1 year we did not give any CPI. The following year, I think we were very generous because we didn't and we could, so we gave a pretty good one. I would kind of look at this year as the same way because of the crisis we're in of not doing it, but then we look at it next year, maybe we can give, maybe we can't. I'll guarantee you folks, this county's gonna run out of money one of these days.
Yeah.
We just can't sit here and keep spending it. When you get all these raises up there, then some of the people are gonna be without jobs because everybody's not gonna be able to afford to work. But I agree, the policy says we need to do the CPI, do the step increase, I'll go for the step increase.
I can go either way as far as,
But I won't go, if I do, not gonna go for the CPI.
sounds like we're about ready for a vote.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to get this off the dead center. I have no idea how the vote will go. And we allow the step increases for all of our employees that are qualified, and I don't know how you want to write it. Are qualified for the step increases to so receive them.
That are eligible.
That are eligible.
Hold on. What, from 2 weeks ago, what was the motion Fred made?
We probably need to read.
Well, they only get them if they're recommended to. They only get them if they're recommended from the department head, not just because they're eligible.
It was a meeting before.
Last week's meeting.
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago. Not in our book.
by doing this is just non-elected, like you said, correct?
Step increases on go to
Non-elected.
salary. Yeah. I mean, not to salary, to hourly. Step increases on go to that hourly.
That's qualified.
Just want to make sure I was,
Recommended by department heads.
right.
Is that the one on CPI?
No.
What was it on?
March 30th.
Okay, here. Rally moved forward with the COLA raise previously adopted by the board at 2.3% for all county employees. There will be no movement up or down in steps or classification on the classification chart until the salary study is complete with the coronavirus situation has cleared, subject to review after recovery of the economy. Any current wage increase or decrease will be frozen beginning April 1st. Department heads will still have permission to hire.
Well, and Levette County put a freeze on all hiring. Just what some other counties are doing.
You want to weigh in on that one?
What I might suggest is maybe move on and come back. So I can see a lot of thought taking place. There's several different things that I can, at least on roundtable, I can bring up, and I'm gonna have to ask for at least 2 executive sessions. So I don't mean to pass it on, but then that way there can be some thought, and we're not just sitting.
With the way that motion was read, I mean, we were basically asking department heads not to ask for step increases for it. I mean, that'd be a fair assumption, is the way to digest that, and then they did it anyway. I mean, am I thinking that I'm wrong there?
No, I think the only comment made at that time was Randy said he was not going to give step increases anyway. His department wasn't. And that,
No, I mean, just off of what Andy just read off the March 30th meeting. I mean, we basically,
Well, and these were supposedly turned in before that meeting.
No,
So these
The
were.
recommendations are already in.
okay, all right.
I think the timing is just,
Yeah, that's, I'm trying to,
it's that time of year where this would normally be occurring. I think a number of the requests had already been processed and presented, not all of them. I think they were just in that.
Okay.
So.
No. All right.
That's,
I would just say one more thing. I know some of them are looking at percentages of this. One percentage only amounts to this much money, this much money. But I think by doing away with the CPI, I just think that's the right next thing to do for the time being. Instead of 1%, only increasing 1% of $7 million, 1% of that. I know there's a lot of taxpayers out there that love to have 1% of $7 million. So,
Wade, if we're gonna change what we voted on the 30th, do we need to rescind that motion? What's the proper procedure? We need to rescind that first and make a new motion.
mechanically, that would sound right. I would need to, I'm a visual person, so not having it in front of me right now, but I think that had a lot of information in it that you need to make sure that if you're gonna do something different, that it needs to be very clear now to rescind it.
But it appears it's gonna be changed. At what level, we don't know. So I guess we need to give you time to propose that motion.
I just need to get a printed copy of it, so I have it to.
How does it appear it's gonna be changed?
I'm sorry?
How does it appear it's gonna be changed?
Well,
If you're reading that it's gonna be appear to be a change, I wanna know how we're, what do we think?
So what steps do we go? I go ahead and make my motion
I don't
and
know.
either get it voted up or down.
I don't know.
Usually you would do move to rescind the motion dated Monday, 3/30/20, and you relist it, if I'm not mistaken, and then someone would move and second that to rescind it. And then you would make a vote.
Which may or may not change.
And if you're, are you wanting to rescind the entire thing and then start over?
To me, that's the right way to do it, but I'm not wrong.
The motion Fred made,
I'm sorry?
the motion Fred made, the one you're talking about.
Yes.
And then I think it's important to have that language so you can make sure that it's, if you're gonna rescind it, that you make the new motion that covers all the potential issues that are with the rescinded motion. And we're talking about multiple different things mechanically here, the CPI, the hiring,
Okay, so the simple solution, where you rescind the motion, then we say we're not giving a CPI this year. That takes the steps out of the equation. And nullifies the CPI.
No, it doesn't. Well, it doesn't. It takes the steps out of that equation, but the steps are still another issue.
The steps go back to processing through the policy manual just as they would as normal.
Exactly. Who gets steps, would get steps.
Right.
We still wait to see.
That's what I'm saying, that takes the steps away from anything we're doing.
No, because Fred had made a motion
We
to,
rescind that motion.
okay, we gotta rescind it, and we gotta rescind the CPI motion both. Then.
Right.
Takes two motions to rescind the CPI and put the steps back where they were.
When was our first motion on the CPI 2.3? Early March?
When you send it out to the
4 weeks
department
ago.
heads.
Yeah, but when we made the motion.
5 weeks ago.
I'm not sure what.
It's like,
Yeah, it would have been in March.
March 2nd. Move the authorize and direct the chairman to sign the advisory memorandum to department heads regarding employee evaluations, form CP4, CP4U, and CP5, which reflects a 2.3% market adjustment as of April 1, 2020. So I guess you need to rescind that one too.
Rescind or amend that one to take out the 2.3% CPI. But that's starting the process.
Starts.
Well, it's starting, but
You need some executive sessions, you said?
yes.
Thinking time. I could.
Took me a whole week to decide this. I apologize.
Thinking time.
I don't have, it just wasn't setting real well with me. Like I say, I know we was talking about freezing the wages till salary study was done, but it's it's just taken a long time to get to, even to this point, and I just don't, it's not their fault.
Well, not using, you're freezing wages.
In a sense, yes. So I think it's just, each and every one of us are contributing to this, not just a select few. I'm contributing, Wade's contributing, Wayne's contributing, Randy's contributing, Angie, all this.
So I guess just what is a motion that we need to?
I'm a little bit lost with everything Steve said. What needs to be put on the table to take care of that?
So the first motion that started this process was March 3rd? Second, I'm sorry. So I think you need to go back and revisit that March 2nd motion and
Bring it on.
Who made that motion? Who made that motion?
Means Don.
And then once you have that one handled, then you can move on to the next one. And once you get there's two motions that need to be addressed, right? Once you have them addressed, then you move on and you can take care of what Cody suggested. But I think there's different parts of each of these motions that need to be, probably one of them it sounds like can be completely rescinded. The other one has to be probably partially rescinded, and making sure the wording is correct is probably key. And then in the new motion, you'll also need to address the hiring and freeze part of it that will be rescinded from the second motion. If I understand correctly.
It'd be difficult to put a freeze on hiring when you have a person that leaves on their own
We're not talking about a freeze.
or a retirement. The word freeze was mentioned a while ago, because it may be a person that absolutely is a necessity to be a part of.
And that's the key word, and when I brought it up a couple of weeks ago.
The word freeze was mentioned, so.
But I think it was also mentioned during that discussion, unless a department head or a department needs to hire someone out of necessity.
Yeah.
So
We never did have a motion on freezing hiring. We never did have a motion on
Now that
that.
it was mentioned.
Well, just because it mentioned it,
Mentioned a couple times.
yeah, but there was no motion on it, so it's.
So while those are being printed off, you want to
Sure.
move ahead so we're not
Yeah.
stuck in the weeds.
Sure.
All right. So I've got two different things I'm going to need to request executive session on. One of them is probably going to take 10 minutes at most. Request a motion for commission to recess into executive session for consultation with county counselor and the board, just the two, to discuss ongoing county litigation under matters being privileged under the attorney-client relationship exception Tacoma, KSA 75431982.
Go 15, temporarily.
I'm sorry?
Can we go 15 since we're traveling? Take that one way. I will move that motion for 15 minutes with county commission and county counselor to return here.
Second.
Second. Okay, Bob.
Tom seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. We'll go in for 15 minutes at 11:05.
Pit stop.
15-minute break. 15-minute break.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Pick Fred's papers up. Pick Fred's papers up.
Oh, good. Right, right. Okay. Well, what's some of the highlights on the contract?
Well,
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, well, see what. Yes. Okay. Yeah, we got a really good. Yeah.
I'm not gonna get upset. Hey, you can make it to the wreck anytime.
Okay. Okay.
Why? You're a little slow getting to the wreck, man.
well, I had to take
They're already dealing with shit, man.
I had to take care of things, you know.
They were just damn lucky somebody didn't get killed out
I
of
was
that.
gonna say, I was
They hit hard. One of them got ejected. The thing probably stayed, he got knocked unconscious, but then he was just sitting there talking to us.
I assume the guy that was affected was the one that split through the
No,
Oh, the other?
it was the south, well, the one on the south end that was in the ditch, the pulling unit. The driver got ejected.
Well, that's one.
Yeah, and, I think he's wearing enough clothing, but it's so cold, that probably saved his ass. It really did. Otherwise, he would have had some major road rash and stuff, but it hit just right to where it knocked him out. But then, he's sitting there just talking to us like, yeah, I got ejected, and yeah, I got knocked out, and
Highway
it's
patrol.
like, woo. Huh?
Highway patrol working with them.
Yeah, because they got a young trooper that needs the experience, that's in training, so they're gonna let him work it and stuff, and the fact they're commercial vehicles and stuff. But yeah, they're just damn lucky.
Yeah, if I understand right, both of them were owned by oil companies.
That's my,
Not the same.
not the same oil company is my understanding. One's over, yeah, they're two different oil companies. That's just a busy area right there for oil. Yeah, Doug Whitman's property right there. I bet I don't know how many wells they drilled on it, and they've got that consolidated tank battery there. So there's different oil companies operating right there, because that's one of the, he's on the west side, Whitman is. See, there's tank batteries both sides, two different companies, and that's fine. I'm not saying anything bad, I'm not saying anything bad. I'm just saying facts. It was an interesting wreck. They're just very lucky. They are, they're very lucky. Were you? One of them had to be transferred to Topeka because of his injuries. He was the one in the north truck, was taken to Topeka, and then these two that were in the south truck were taken to Falcon County Hospital. There was two in the south truck. Yeah. The south truck, the driver was ejected and the passenger was not. So,
That was a
it was a heck of a, there was pipe, oil field pipe strung around. Of course, you know, they carry a lot of stuff on those trucks and stuff, everything they need, you know, to be self-sufficient when they're out there, so. And all that stuff's just put in like milk crates and everything, so it's strung everywhere. So mowing this summer might get interesting. 7th and Shetland, right there by all those tank batteries and stuff, so. And that's the one that he can't afford it. And that one is on the side. That's the fully, the one with the driver. The passenger is not. How I don't know. I don't know. Of course,
Hey, Russell, these are back.
we got 20.
Oh, yeah, no, me, yeah. Because it's not for, it's pretty much.
Right? I know this is all, probably real forward on it, but I was thinking on the month. I didn't know if it was options. But it's still, it puts you on timeline for one. If you verify it, it'll be fine.
As long as I get caught, probably back in on Saturday. Couple hours after I did some more stuff on I actually hauled away 3 big bags of trash.
Well, I mean, if you want to save yourself from that, I didn't know if there's an option to write in the contract. Hey, I don't know how, I'm just, I don't know, option, option. Where it's about to be. How do you feel comfortable with it? I really can't see you. Yeah, I'm not sure. In my life. That's all we have to do. I don't see what's
So how are you getting along in isolation? Most of the time, I guess.
I think I've been, since I got here, I've pretty much been quarantined, so it's not.
That's what I was thinking.
New or different for me.
That's what I was thinking.
And outside of going to get gas and groceries, I don't really go anywhere to do anything. Unless I travel out of state, but right now, I'm not going anywhere.
Right.
I think Michigan has the third most cases in the country right now.
Yep, I do.
How about yourself? How are you?
Oh, we've got Kevin Singer at home, but we're getting by.
Oh, yeah, that's that concrete hauled up in that old garage and all that.
Oh,
Some of that stuff was this thick. Concrete. Sitting in there on that skid steer just hammering away. Hours. Concrete was cheap. Luckily, they reported like a 10 to 15 section here, 10 to 15.
Siemens in it at least.
No reinforcement. That's probably that HVAC word.
No.
Well, let's hope anyway. Let's hope anyway.
I had a Zoom Easter with my family from all across the country. My brother in New York, my uncle in Arizona, a cousin in Nevada, cousin in
Well, I think
Virginia,
that's made from ethanol.
cousin
It is.
in Florida.
I understand that there's been, I know the ethanol plant in Barnett has sold 30 semi-loads of ethanol to,
We're able to do that, right?
to,
Think of how this would be in 50 years
and they
ago.
said it's got the odor that's not real.
No contact.
It's just comes from somebody in
It don't bother me.
Ottawa. Comes from Ottawa, somebody in Ottawa who made this stuff for us.
That probably came
And
from ethanol.
well, that's where it came from.
They're selling ethanol for a pretty good price.
Like corn sours. Okay, we're ready to wait again. Are we back?
Yeah, that's still on.
That never gets turned off.
Shut it off.
That's why we leave.
Yeah, never get shut off.
We're close.
What time did we go in?
We went in at 11:05 for 15 minutes, and right now we're at 11:20, so we're back in.
Sweet.
We'll just need, Angie for the next executive session request. So until she gets back, what I'll do is I'll cover something else real quick, just to take up the time. I mentioned earlier there was the oral argument for the Kansas Supreme Court on the issue involving the governor's executive order 20-18. And the main impact or issue with that executive order dealt with the religious freedoms portion, how it affected church services and being able to go into mass gatherings for that particular issue. Right after that executive order was issued, there was a memorandum that was issued to, or sent out to Kansas prosecutors and law enforcement from the Attorney General's office that had issue with the religious component of that particular executive order. And in the meantime, the LCC, Legislative Coordinating Council, had overridden the governor's request, or the governor's executive order, and then the governor in her official capacity as governor then filed a suit with the Kansas Supreme Court late last week, and that's what the oral argument was. So it's Governor Kelly versus Kansas Coordinating Council, and if you're interested, there's a written opinion by the Kansas Supreme Court. It's about 23 pages long. The oral argument was at 9 o'clock on Saturday morning, and a decision, I believe, was issued at 9 o'clock that night. So very expedited, highly summarized. The Supreme Court found that the Legislative Coordinating Council did not have the authority, based on some statutory interpretation of some language in the emergency management statutes, to rescind or override Governor Kelly's executive order. So it did not even address the religious liberty portion of the dispute. So that executive order went live yesterday. I mentioned that because once that executive order went live, there's then some guidance out there from the state level that indicates, I'll just read from the COVID-19 guidance report issued April 11, 2020 by the adjunct general for the state of Kansas for that office. Quote, today the Kansas Supreme Court held the LCC did not have the authority to revoke the governor's executive order, and executive order 2018 remains in effect. Accordingly, prohibition of gatherings on 10 or more, including both secular and religious gatherings, remain in effect statewide. And it later discusses a violation as a Class A misdemeanor, subject up to 1 year in jail and $2,500 fine. Why is that important? That goes contrary to what the Attorney General's interpretation is of that particular legal issue regarding the religious side of things, and that's only what I'm talking about right now. I had met with local religious leaders by Zoom 2 weeks before this, and I think they had a plan in place. I think they understood that no one's wanting to interrupt or interfere with their rights to have service, to have people come into service, but in this unprecedented day and time, the strong encouragement was that they have some other mode or mechanism to have those services, and that's what they've been doing. They've been online. I know some have talked about having drive-in services. I mention all this to say, so that the public hears that the sheriff's department's not coming out and law enforcement's not going out to shut down churches and to affect people and their rights to congregate, to have interfere with their religious freedoms. That's not that's not the goal. The whole goal here is for people to practice proper social distancing, and the sheriff's department has better things to do than to police what churchgoers are doing. It's the ultimate statement I want to make here. So they use their discretion, although this is out there, that's not something that they're actively enforcing. And as I mentioned last week, there's a warning sheet that they can issue to people. I don't know if they've even issued one of them. It's not really a priority. So that's all I have for that. Moving on, I'm going to request the board, the commission, myself, and county clerk recess into executive session to protect the privacy rights of non-elected personnel pursuant to the non-elected personnel matters exception to Tacoma, KSA 754319B1, and that would be for 15 minutes.
So moved.
Don has moved,
Second.
Tom is second. All in favor? Opposed, same sign. We'll go in, sorry, motion passes 5-0. We'll go in for 15 minutes at 11:28.
Cody, 15? 15, okay. Back to 11:43.
Okay, I can remember where this came from.
That's all fine. 15 minutes.
That time then,
No, I was gonna go smoke a heat this weekend. That's all.
I didn't get one smoked either. I had one, it was in the freezer, but it was just the wife and I, because we're doing our daughter, we're not allowing her to come to our house. You did what? Yeah. You just smoked it? Slow smoke it?
About 100 and 330.
Was it really tender? I pulled we did chicken Saturday on the grill and potatoes, but then Sunday it was just her and I, and it was just windy and rainy, and we just stayed inside. Our daughter Caitlin wanted to come over, but we were only gonna let her come over if we could be outside, because she's been babysitting, school's out, she's been babysitting for one of her best friends' baby as a nurse at Newman's. And so she was practicing the social distancing thing, and so said, you know what, we're not gonna have any fun sitting outside. It's cold, it's windy, it's rainy. You know what, stay where you're at, and we'll see you another time. Because this test that they say we're supposed to be looking out pretty quick, that if you had it, and if you're, if you had it, then they, which I don't blame them, they want your blood. They want your blood. If you test positive, they want your blood to check for the antibodies and what what your system did and how's it compared to people that aren't infected or have. And so I think that's important to know how to make a vaccine for it. And so I think that they're saying right now, some of those tests aren't 100% reliable. There's some out there that they whipped out so quick that are 50-50 on reliability. But they think they'll have one this week. By the end of the week, they'll have one that they, feel really comfortable with. And the company supposedly can just mass produce them. And then all it takes is a freaking blood. And it sucks it, kind of like you do for diabetes or whatever. It sucks it up in there and and then it gives you, kind of like with pregnancy tests or whatever, it gives you a line. It says you test positive for COVID-19, and it has some lines that, it'll tell you pretty simple to use. And supposedly, according to the update, obviously, they want to test every American. I don't know how you'd ever do that. I think you could do it more likely to get it done in the rural areas and do it kind of like a drive-through flu clinic. You're going to get a percentage of the population, but you're never going to get 100% of the population. There's just some that aren't going to do that because, yeah, it's going to be back in the fall, they said. And hopefully there'll be a vaccine. So, and I think, no, God, can you imagine? It's all devastated. And they're talking about now, CDC only opening things back up in steps, not all at once. There's some businesses, yeah, and do things just as there's some they can't, and there's a lot of exactly. I do agree.
And the differences between working
Tremendous difference. When you have those mass numbers on top of each other, really, it's hard to control that. Versus rural Kansas, where they could adapt pretty good. We're pretty good at adapting, and stuff. Even speaking of Kansas, is good at adapting. Kansas City, a little more challenging. Wichita, a little more challenging. But it can still be done. But those businesses, that's what I'm trying. Got money, Commissioner. I would like to see them do something to get out there and engage those businesses that have been impacted. What can we do to take care of them? Because we need to make sure that they're able to come back and this is over as a business. Your business is getting hurt, obviously. The auctioneering business is getting hurt. You can't have auctions, and so unless you're adapted online auctions, and then you still got to get the product to people. You can't go, I was a little concerned. Yeah, but you got that high flow of close contact. That concerns me. But it's no different than Sonic or yeah, or pizza and having them deliver it. So, but that's hard to adapt to for some businesses that are catering businesses. Because there's not the catering orders, for the banquets and events. But I would like to see small businesses survive this, and the ones that are impacted, that are on the verge of not coming back, I think there ought to be some grant process to help them out. Help them get back on their feet, at least some, say, here's a grant. You come back and you're able to reopen, but here's a grant to help you restart. Well, I'm supposed to, but the red tape is so cumbersome that. Exactly right, and the state, there's nothing. The unemployment lines are back up and continue to talk to unemployment control. So we call it a small business it's a small mom and pop shop in Burlington, Kansas, coming out how to go about, how to say the buzzwords to defeat this money. They're not. And a small business, the designation for a small business is what, 500 employees or less or something? You know, really? So who's gonna get the money? The business with 400 employees is gonna get it over the business with 4 employees. I mean, that's just the way. So that isn't gonna help us without the county. Can exactly, you know, that's, it's gonna help those businesses and get it, that we all rely on in the bigger communities. So we go to the city to, you know, shop or eat at, but that's not gonna help the mom and pop gas station, you know, or the mom and pop flower shop, or the mom and pop, you know, restaurant. We gotta, I don't like relying on federal government to take care of us locally, because we've seen how that works in disasters, and they say, oh, well, we're gonna reimburse you for all the expenses, and then when it comes home, you didn't have enough, you didn't qualify. You read the Kansas gets hit for giant impact by tornado twice, and they don't qualify for the tax. Not enough money. Small places do that. So the mom and pops in the government eats it, and take it in shorts, and that's not right. And that's the reason I got those commission. Whatever decide to do things, but I hope they do something to focus on small business and grants for the small business. It's money well spent. You know, who cares if you ever get it back or not? It's money well spent. Long-term sustainability. Someday, we're gonna need those small mom and pops to take care of things. We're not infrastructure with fiber and all that, because it's gonna be money well spent long-term. It's just for sustainability. Now's the time to invest in long-term. You know, but from technology, it's ever changing. It's ever changing. What's usable today is not going to be usable in 5 years. It's that long. You know, and then so it's a long-term investment. It's not a one-time investment. It's a long-term investment. But God knows. We do. Did you hear the opera singer singing Amazing Grace? Was that not phenomenal? That just almost made me start crying. It did. It was, oh my gosh, the way it reverberated, but it was just amazing. It was impressive. It was very impressive. I think it's what we needed.
Whether they were sending motion in March.
I'm probably not gonna make it.
So this CP5 was done before we made that motion on March 30th. what you're telling me? These step increases were already in process before we made that motion on March 30th.
Somewhere, yeah. Somewhere.
These.
So when they presented this vote to us 2 weeks ago. Calendars. This was already drafted basically before March 30th. And I understand where Fred's coming from. I really do. I get it. I just, I say,
Yeah, we're back. I had to-
I thought it was, I'm sorry.
I guess I should have not, nobody saying anything.
But we only have a minute left, I'm coming down the stairs, and it takes me a little longer to get here than that.
Yep, right.
Like I said, the salary study part, the delay on it is what it is. I mean, some of it's our fault, some of it's COVID's, whatever, however you want to look at it, but I still go back to everybody ought to do their part, each and every employee. So,
Can I ask a quick question, not to throw a wrench in anything, but,
oh, I already did, so go right ahead.
well, my question is, those employees that have already been hired at the new rate on salary chart that started this month, so they're at the certain step with the 2.3% cost of living raise, and then we have the other employees that they might get their step, but there's no cost of living. So that's gonna make in our payroll system, when we go in and put in all of our codes, I don't know how that's gonna work. When we've got some employees at a particular step with a different hourly rate, and other employees at that same step at a different rate.
How many's already been hired at the new rate? To
To
me, they should have been hired at the old rate until that rate even took effect.
Well, when you guys made your motion, you made it
Yeah, but it
effective
didn't take
April
effect
first.
until April 1st.
April first, right, and if they're
So they
starting.
still should have been hired under the old pay scale. And then effectively April 1st, they got their increase.
Okay, but they're hired in April. They're hired April first.
They're just one, or, they're just one.
Well, I have one, I think the sheriff's office had a couple,
Wade had it,
Wait, hadn't hired one yet.
no,
so he can put that, he can do whatever he wants there.
We need to go ahead and rescind this.
That's the motion you want to make?
Mr. Chairman, I move to rescind the motion dated Monday, May the 2nd, 2020. As stated, meets move to authorize and direct the chairman to sign the advisory memorandum to department heads regarding employee evaluations. Form CP4, CP4U, CP5, which reflects a 2.3 market adjustment as of April 1st, 2020. And that motion was seconded by Suresic. Motion carries.
Dawn has moved. Is there a second?
I'm a second that, I might as well have 150 people upset with me, it's 42.
Dawn has moved, and Bob has seconded. Any further discussion?
I just need to mention, it says May 2nd, and I think it was meant to be March
March
2nd.
second. Sorry about that.
Yeah, this,
Yeah, With,
It might help to have at least a small sentence in there. So when somebody later on down the road wants to come back and say, what's happening? Why did this happen? Reason for said motion is necessity of the board to minimize the economic cost and effect on Coffee County citizens. Something that's your call, but
Sounds good.
to minimize the economic cost and effect on Coffee County citizens. I guess due to COVID-19. that probably-
Don, that motion as amended?
Yes.
Don has moved and Bob has seconded as amended. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0.
Cody, would you read the second motion, please?
There's a motion before us to rescind the motion dated Monday, March 30th, 2020. Mr. Riley moved forward with the COLA raise previously adopted by the board of 2.3% for all county employees. There will be no movement up or down in steps or classification on the classification chart until the salary study is complete. The coronavirus situation is cleared, subject to review after recovery of the economy. Any current wage increase or decrease will be frozen beginning April 1st. Department heads would still have permission to hire. The motion was seconded by Huguenin and carried. Then the same motion is made because of the necessity of the board to minimize the economic cost and effect of the COVID-19 outbreak on the taxpayers. Are you making that motion, Fred, or did you just want me to read it?
I move to rescind the portion that relates to the CPI index and let the rest of it stand.
So for clarification, are you saying
That's
rescind
first
is 2.3% COLA, and then there will be no movement up or down in steps? Is that what you're saying?
I'm going to retain the no up and down.
Okay.
So then do we need to rescind that, or could it be an amendment?
Amend part of the motion.
Or would we have to rescind it?
It's probably
Rescind the whole thing and then make the motion?
It's probably cleaner to rescind than make a new motion. Would be my opinion, because then you have to read back and try to figure out what's missing.
Yeah.
so we
if we rescind the whole motion or nothing, right?
So we have to rescind, it would make more sense to rescind the whole
Right.
thing and then to make a new motion.
I have no objection to someone else wants to do it.
I'll make a motion.
So Tom has moved to rescind the entire motion. Correct?
Correct.
I'll second Cody.
Tom has moved, and Don has seconded. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. Motion carries 4-1.
Clarification, by that motion, that means steps are allowed
Right now, yes.
as of now. Steps are allowed. And hiring is still permitted.
So then we have the question of the small number of employees that were hired in that would have started first of the month, that would have been at the wrong pay scale.
What do you think, there's three, Angie? Three or four?
Maybe Scott, so I don't know how many people I've hired in, but, who else? I think there might have been a few at Road possibly. So,
Now, summer employees, did they get to 2.3 also?
I don't know.
But they haven't been hired yet,
No, I have not.
so that's not a problem. Trying to think who we hired at Real Bridge, we'd come in with that.
It sounded like we talked to 9 of them to start May the 4th. Is that right?
That's not, yeah, that's down the road. So,
Not too many now, needs to Steve make a motion to approve the step increases.
no. Done. Automatically goes.
They don't make my form.
If the department head approves it, that's the way it goes.
So is there gonna be another motion? I think everything was clear, and now you're in a situation where some of the wording, and this may be why Fred only wanted part of his original motion rescinded, which made sense, but the part where there's no movement up or down until the salary study is completed or coronavirus situation is clear. Because if you don't have that, then that potentially leaves open the window for movement up and down outside of the step increases, which is what we're trying to accomplish here. Does that make sense?
So you mean from one step up to another, it's not just regular, like we had last year?
Well, so some suggested language would be something in motion. The board has decided not to move forward with COLA raises for all county employees based on the current COVID-19 pandemic. However, all employees eligible for step increases as of April 1st, 2020 shall be given the eligible step increases pursuant to policy manual. There will be no movement up or down in steps or classifications outside of the eligible step increases until the salary study is completed. COVID-19 has cleared. And then the current wage increase or decrease is frozen beginning April 1st. And then have the provision in there, department heads will still have permission to hire if necessary. Something to that.
That sound pretty good, whatever.
Sound good to me. I was thinking there might be something that need to come down the pike, but as far as a motion.
Well, I think if you didn't do anything, then I think
It could go wild.
159, I believe. CC3.
63.
I mean, the whole point is so that employees who are eligible for their step increase get their step increase. That's why this whole exercise has taken place. So
Great.
I think it needs to be made clear that that's what's to occur, but anything outside of that is prohibited, I guess is the best.
Everything outside that wouldn't be allowed. So how you document it into motion.
I'm fine with that. And I was assuming Angie was typing that down.
Yeah, I gotta get the rest of it from you.
Okay.
Or I'll write it on the video and get
I need the old.
And I just changed the order.
Question. So if you take
Yep.
With his experience. Be pretty close. I bet this is new. It's not too.
Got to open with me.
What are they gonna do to you now?
Waiting for me to, or waiting for Angie. Or
Wait,
what?
you to help me.
Hold on, I'm working on one.
Still working on motions.
Move to proceed with freezing the salary and hourly rates until completion of the salary and compensation study where the economic impact of the COVID-19 crisis is known. To be effective today, earned time and step increases will be given. Department heads will still have permission to hire.
We'll be giving this to what date?
Given for policy manuals for the handbook for section. Didn't you quote that earlier?
I thought it was 6.8. Is that right?
8.6, isn't it?
Or 8.6?
6.6, I think.
And if you're eligible for a step increase, isn't it April 1st where that comes into play? So
All right.
if you're eligible as of April 1st, then then you might have department heads can hire, permission to hire when necessary to meet the needs, onboarding needs of their department, so there's no unnecessary hiring.
Do we need to have in there until the salary study is done? Does that leave an assumption in there that we're gonna reevaluate this when it's completed in October, November, December?
So let me read it again. Move to proceed with freezing the salary and hourly rates until the completion of the salary and compensation study or the economic impact of the COVID-19 crisis is known. Be effective 4/13/2020. Earned time and step increases would be given per policy manual section
8.6.
8.6.
I think it's 8.6.
And 8.6?
Yeah.
I think it's 6.
6.8?
Yeah, I think it's 6.8.
6.8? Okay.
8.6 is funeral leave.
Oh, okay.
For section 6.8.
Yeah.
Department heads still have the ability, still have permission to hire as required to meet the needs of said department.
What's your thoughts on that, Wade? Does that leave us open for an assumption when the epidemic is over with or the salary stays down, we're gonna reevaluate it?
You can put a
Yes.
sentence in there.
Would move to proceed with freezing the salary and hourly rates until completion of the salary and compensation study or the economic impact of the COVID-19 crisis is known.
Wasn't that the idea of the salary study was to reevaluate it when it was done anyway?
Yeah, but is that leaving the assumption that if it's done in October, we're gonna come to and reevaluate wages, or we're gonna wait till April 1st of next year? You gonna do it in the middle of the spring?
I don't know if there's a time limit.
It kind of leaves an assumption in there when that, either one of those situations is completed, we're gonna reevaluate the wages. To me, it leaves an assumption there.
I would think so.
I'm sorry?
I would think so.
But that leaves an
Well, yeah.
assumption. To me, we ought to wait till April 1st. You know, we have that, all that information before us, and we evaluate wages in March like we always do.
Like it to read. Move to proceed with freezing salary and hourly rates until March 1st, 2021.
No.
To me, there needs to be something stated in there.
But I think
Unless we're
once
gonna assume and reevaluate
we're
wages.
spending on the
middle of
money
the
for
year.
a salary study, when we get done with the salary study, I think we ought to start taking a look at it. But I don't think we have a deadline. It has to be a certain day.
It does leave an
I agree
assumption.
with that. But we need to take a look at it. That's why we're doing it. There's no deadline. It has to be done this day. Then we're gonna be right where we've been here lately. We'll be making decisions and then saying, oh, I don't see an assumption on the first one you read it. To me, there wasn't an assumption. It was, when this is all settled and everything is settled, then we will start looking at that stuff, however it be.
What's your input on that, what is? I don't mean,
The
keep
word,
putting you on the spot. I don't like seeing an assumption left in the motion.
so the word or leaves, you have
Yeah, I took that out.
two conditions, either one or the other. So if one happens or the other happens, they both don't have to happen. So if the compensation study is complete, that's one of the conditions precedent, or the economy gets better, then that's another condition. So either one could lead the board to the point where they could review the current status quo. And I don't know if that's what you're trying to avoid, but it seems to make sense, because I think that's what if 6 months down the road, the economy is back on track, then is the intent for the board to potentially review salaries, or if the compensation study is complete in 6 months, to review salaries. Either one, the way it's written with the or, it leaves that discretion available. If you say not until May 1st of next year, then whether the compensation study is done in 6 months, you're not going to take a look at it until May 1st of next year, because that's what your motion says. So I don't know what the intent is. That's my interpretation of what I've heard.
I like Cody's first wording, so.
Yeah.
So move to proceed with freezing the salary and hourly rates until completion of the salary and compensation study and the economic impact of the COVID-19 crisis is known. To be effective today, 4/13/2020. Earned time and step increases will be given for policy manual section 6.8. Department heads still have the permission to hire as required to meet the needs of their department.
Are you making that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
I've moved, Tom has seconded. Is there any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
I'd like for it to be documented. To me, we're leaving an assumption in there that one or the other one, I don't know what the right word is, satisfy
No, we took that out. We said and, both of them have to be met.
Both of them. Okay, also voted affirmative.
We'll start over. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Do you need that, Andy?
Yeah, I can watch the video usually.
Anything else for roundtable? Wait,
Not for me.
Andy?
Only thing I have to tell you is we did receive the big box today to put tax statements in. I guess we'll try to place that on the patio out there and maybe bolt it down. I hate to drill holes in a new project, but it needs to be covered probably and not out in the elements, so. But anyway, we did receive that today. It was supposed to be here this Wednesday, but it came early. And then prior to the meeting, Fred and I were discussing about the hands-free flushers on toilets and sinks and maybe paper towel dispensers put down throughout the courthouse. I don't know what your thoughts are on that. It could be an expense, but you know, I don't, from what I hear in the news and possibly what Fred's heard on the news, you know, we may see another round of this in the fall. We don't know. And with flus and all that that is going around, I don't know if that's something you want me to move forward with doing to the building to ensure the safety of employees, or if you.
We can put together an estimate on it. One thing I might add would be the, what do they call the foot openers? The little step on the bottom of the door so you can pull the door open with your foot, grab the handle. I don't know the terminology for those.
I know what you mean, I've seen them, yeah.
I think all those would be a step in the right direction for protection of the employees.
Yes.
Those items might be in short supply too. Right now.
Would that be making the laboratories or where we wash our hands, make them automatic also? Talking about, okay.
Still waiting on some supplies to come in. Things have been delayed with everything that's going on right now, so just keep trying to push to get all that here for sprays and everything else that offices can use. And so we got plenty of this stuff right now. We may have to get more of it. So that's all I have.
I would say that this stuff you're talking about to benefit the employees and also will benefit the citizens when this is over also. So it's,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I think we need to say that. So people who scrutinize us all the time understand where we're from.
I have nothing, Cody.
Oh,
Already did it.
Fred, and don't put me down with Fred. All no offense, Fred. I don't have anything, Mr. Chairman.
I don't have anything at the moment. Donna?
The only thing I have is, you have scheduled the Flight Scholarships Award presentation on the 27th. And how do you want to cancel that and then just mail them out, or what is your recommendation for that? Rhonda was wondering.
Wade, is the Starleaf set up? Could we, well, that probably doesn't work. Probably can't get into that on your cell phone, can you, for
Yes.
video?
Yes.
With video, not
Yes.
just calling. Can't.
You can, yeah, cell phone connection also.
Does it have have to be done this early? The runway's tore up right now. They're not going to go out there right away and fly anyway. I mean, can we postpone this for a month or two until at least there's a runway for them? And then maybe by then we can actually have, I think it's probably a good deal for the kids. So I think we just maybe postpone it for a little while, till at least, till the runway's ready anyway.
There, wouldn't the, I have nothing, have no idea how it works, but wouldn't the first several weeks or months be dedicated to classroom only?
Not necessarily, no.
Like I
May
said,
put them in a plane the first day they're out there. If they really want the feel of it.
I'm not against postponing it, but I think a letter ought to be sent to each
Letter.
kids, letting them know that it's gonna happen at a later date.
I don't know if I have a date to postpone it too, but
We'll wait and see.
postpone the ceremony.
See about the conditions of the runway.
So just have her send out a letter to the kids stating that it'll be postponed to a later date, yet to be determined. Okay, that's all.
Anything else? Anybody have anything else? Adjourn at 12:24.